You know that moment when something is due tomorrow, and suddenly you become the most productive human being on earth? The room is clean, the assignment is done, emails are answered, your entire life is in order, all in one night. But 3 days earlier, when you had plenty of time, you did absolutely nothing. If that sounds familiar, you're not lazy, you're not broken, and you're definitely not the only one. There's actually a really interesting psychological reason why some people always wait until the last second. Most people assume procrastination is about poor time management, that you just need a planner, a calendar, or more discipline. But psychology suggests something very different. For many people, waiting until the last second isn't about time at all. It's about emotion. See, when you have a task to do, especially something important, your brain doesn't just see a task. It sees pressure, expectations, possible failure, judgment, uncertainty. And your brain is wired to avoid uncomfortable emotions, not to complete tasks efficiently. So when you say, "I'll do it later," what you're really saying is, "I don't want to feel this right now." But then something interesting happens as the deadline gets closer. The pressure increases, the urgency rises, and suddenly your brain switches into survival mode. Adrenaline kicks in, focus sharpens, distractions disappear, and you enter what feels like a productivity superpower. That last-minute panic? It's actually a powerful motivator. For some people, it's the only thing strong enough to overcome the emotional resistance they felt earlier. So in a strange way, last-second people aren't always unproductive. Sometimes they're extremely productive, just in very short, intense bursts. They're like sprinters in a world that expects marathon runners. There's also something else going on here. For some people, waiting until the last second protects their identity. Imagine you start a project early, take your time, work hard, and the result isn't that great. That feels like a personal failure. But if you start the night before and the result isn't perfect, you can always tell yourself, "Well, I didn't really try." Psychologists call this self-handicapping. It sounds negative, but it's actually a defense mechanism. It protects your self-esteem. In other words, sometimes procrastination isn't fear of work. It's fear of finding out what you're capable of. There's also the personality side of this. Some people genuinely enjoy the pressure, the ticking clock, the rising stakes, the feeling that everything depends on this moment. It creates excitement, urgency, even meaning. Without a deadline, the task feels boring and pointless. With a deadline, it becomes a challenge, a mission, a story. Think about students who study the night before every exam and somehow always pass. Or people who pack for a flight 2 hours before leaving the house. Or the person who submits an assignment at 11:59 p.m. every single time. These people often live in cycles of calm, then panic, then relief. And over time, their brain actually gets used to this cycle. It becomes a pattern, almost like a habit loop. There's also something deeper and a little philosophical about this behavior. People who wait until the last second often live very strongly in the present moment. The future doesn't feel real to them until it becomes the present. A deadline next week feels abstract, almost imaginary. But a deadline tonight feels real, immediate, urgent. So they act. Your brain is actually very bad at caring about the future version of you. Future you is like a stranger. The current you wants comfort, entertainment, rest, anything that feels good now. And last-minute people are especially good at prioritizing present comfort over future stress until the future suddenly becomes the present and the stress arrives all at once. But here's the interesting part. This trait isn't always a weakness. Last-minute people often develop skills that others don't. They learn to work under pressure. They learn to make decisions quickly. They learn to focus intensely when it matters. They become very good at prioritizing what's actually important. Because when you don't have much time, you stop wasting time on unimportant details. Some of the most creative bursts of work in history happened under deadlines. Writers finishing books at the last moment. Engineers solving problems hours before launch. Students writing essays overnight that somehow turn out brilliant. Pressure doesn't always destroy performance. Sometimes it creates it. The real problem isn't waiting until the last second. The real problem is the stress, the guilt, the constant feeling that you're always behind in life. That feeling can slowly damage your confidence because you start to believe you're lazy or undisciplined, even if that's not true. So maybe the goal isn't to completely change who you are. Maybe the goal is just to understand how your brain works. If you're someone who always waits until the last second, you might not need more motivation. You might need earlier deadlines, artificial pressure, smaller countdowns, because what you really respond to isn't time, it's urgency. And once you understand that, something interesting happens. You stop seeing yourself as the person who always procrastinates. You start seeing yourself as the person who performs under pressure, and that's a very different identity. So if you're the kind of person who always starts things at the last moment, maybe you're not broken. Maybe your brain just works differently. Maybe you don't move when there's plenty of time because time doesn't motivate you. Pressure does, urgency does, stakes do. And the moment you realize that, you stop fighting yourself and start understanding yourself. And understanding yourself is always the first step to changing anything. So I'm curious now, are you the kind of person who finishes everything early? Or are you the kind of person who somehow gets everything done at 11:59 p.m.? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content about psychology, behavior, and the hidden reasons behind the things we all do, make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps support the channel and allows me to keep making more videos like this. And I'd also love to hear from you, so write in the comments what topic you want me to explore next, because many of these videos are directly inspired by your ideas. See you in the next video.